Hello, this is lesson B6 Inequalities and Compounds Inequalities. Basically, these are the symbols you're probably going to see on the book relating to greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to. You might also see the following symbols: an empty circle with an arrow to the right for greater than, a circle with an arrow to the left for less than, a circle that is filled in going to the right for greater than or equal to, or a circle filled in going to the left. Okay? So don't be surprised if you see these symbols or these symbols. Okay? And for my lesson, I'm going to use these symbols. Okay? They're the most common, but don't be surprised if you see these. Okay? Alright, here we go. We're going to do some inequalities here. So I'm going to put the paper here so you can see the problems. So here we go. Example number one. Example number one has to do with solve each inequality and graph and write the solution in interval notation. So basically here I have this inequality. My first job is to get the letter on the left. So it's always good to put the letter on the left. So we're going to do 9x minus 12x. In the numbers without x, I'm going to put it to the right. So this would be negative 11 minus 4. Okay, now we're going to move. Now we're going to combine terms. So this would be negative 3x less than negative 11, negative 4 is negative 15. And if you combine both, not combine both, but we're going to divide both sides by negative 3. And now that we're dividing by negative 3, remember, anytime you divide by a negative number, you must flip the inequality sign. So we're going to flip the inequality sign. And 15 divided by 3 is 5. Okay, now that we have that, we always going to put the number in the middle. And one of the reasons why we want the x on the left always is because once we get to the answer and the x is on the left, the inequality sign is pretty much going to point you the direction of the arrow. Okay? Alright, so let's do the number line. So this would be 5, 6, 7, 4, and 3. And because this is greater than, there will be a circle, an empty circle. And is it going to point to the right? Because we want the numbers, all the numbers greater than 5. Okay, and if you notice, your inequality sign matches the arrow. Okay, that only works if the letters is on the left. Okay, for example, if you solve this problem and the x was on the right, most likely your answer would be like this. Okay, and if you notice, the arrow is not pointing in the same direction as the graph. So if by any chance you solve a problem and your x is on the right, what you can do is flip everybody. So you flip the x to the left, you flip the inequality sign, and you move the number to the other side. Okay, so basically I'm flipping everybody, and basically if you notice, we get the same answer. Okay, so anytime you get an x on the right, what you can do is flip everybody, so that will be easier for you to graph. Okay, alright, so let's go on to the next problem, letter B. Letter B is 13a plus 8 less or equal to 8a minus 2. Again, we're going to put the numbers with letters on the left. So it'll be 13a minus 8a. And the numbers without x, we're going to put it on the right. So the negative 2 stays there, and the negative 8 comes in. Okay? Combine like terms. So 13 minus 8 is 5a. And negative 2 minus 8 is negative 10. And we're going to divide it by 5. And that would be a less or equal to negative 2. If you notice here, I did not flip the inequality sign because I'm not dividing by a negative number. Okay? So next step is make the number line. The number line will start at negative 2, and this would be negative 1, 0, -3, and -4. And we're starting at -2, so we'll put a circle. I'm going to fill in because there is less than or equal to, and the arrow is going to go to the left. Alright, one thing I forgot to do on the previous problem is to do the interval notation, so let's do that now for both problems. Okay, interval notation basically start with your pencil on the left, and you start moving to the right until you touch the line. I'm touching the line first at 5, so my interval notation will start at 5, and it's going to continue going all the way to 7, or not 7, actually to touch this arrow here, and the arrow means infinity, so positive infinity. And because it's an empty circle, I'm going to use parentheses. In infinity, you always use parentheses. Alright, let's do letter B. If I go from left to right, first thing I touch is the arrow, which means infinity. And in this case, is negative infinity. So we always open with parentheses for the infinity. And it's going to go to the right all the way to until it touches -2. Then it stops. So then the lines stop occurring. So that's my end of my interval, -2. And we're going to close it with a bracket because it's a solid point. Okay. Okay. Also, I was just wanted to demonstrate that sometimes you might see the graph like this, or you might see the graph like this with this type of representation instead of the empty circle. And in this guy here, it would be a bracket. So don't be surprised that in some books you see it represented this way, and others you see it represented this way. Both ways are correct. It all depends on the textbook. Okay. All right. Let's continue on to letter C. So let me bring it to view here. Letter C. All right. So here we have letter C. And basically, letter C has two inequality signs. Basically, what we're going to do is try to get the x by itself in the middle. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to move the 3 to both sides. So that means this would be -1 plus 3 less or equal to 2x less than 5 plus 3. So if you notice, I moved the 3 and the 3 went to both sides of the inequality. Okay, so now let's combine terms. So this would be 2x less than 8. Now what we're going to do is we're going to divide all terms by 2. So this would be 1 less or equal to x less than 8. And then that's our interval. Whoops, made a mistake here. 8 divided by 2 is not 8, it's 4. Apologize there. Okay. Alright, now that I have that interval, I'm going to plot the interval. So I'm going to start at say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that will cover my interval that I have here. I'm going to start at 1. It's going to be filled because it has a little equal sign. And it's going to go all the way to 4, and it's going to be an empty circle because this is less than. So now my interval is going to be starting at 1 and ending at 4. So that is my interval. So now I have done 3 examples here together with you. So why don't you try the practice problems, and when you're done, restart the video to see the answers for the practice problems. Okay? Okay, welcome back. Here will be the answers for the practice problems. So let's go ahead and work together. Basically, my job is to get the x alone. So basically, this would be x minus 4x greater or equal to 17 minus 8. And this would be negative 3x greater or equal to 9. Divide both sides by negative 3. This would be x. The sign will flip because I'm dividing by a negative number. And 9 divided by negative 3 is negative 3. So with that, I'm going to make the graph. So we'll start at negative 3. Then negative 2, negative 1, negative 4, negative 5. And this would be a filled circle. and basically I'm looking for the numbers less than -3, so it's going to go to the left. So I'm going to start at negative infinity, and I will end at -3. Okay. Alright, let's go on to the next one. Letter B. Letter B, first thing I need to do is the parentheses. So this would be 3x minus 3 greater than 7x plus 21. Now let's combine, move things around. So it'll be 3x minus 7x greater than 21 plus 3. Basically I move sides, move the numbers with x to this side, numbers without x to the other side. So this would be negative 4x. 21 plus 3 is 24. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 4. Positive divided by a negative becomes a negative. And because I'm divided by a negative number, I'm going to flip the sign. This would be negative 6. So with that, we're ready to do our graph. So we'll start at negative 6 here in the middle. This would be negative 5, negative 4, negative 7, negative 8. I'm going to use an empty circle, and we're going to the left. So with that, I'm starting at negative infinity, and I'm stopping at negative 6 with the parentheses. Alright, very well. Let's go on now to the next problem. Next problem is letter C, and this one I have two inequality signs. So first thing, you start to get the x alone by moving the 5. So it'll be minus 5, 3x less than or equal to 20 minus 5. This would be negative 9, 3x less or equal to 15. I'm going to divide all three by 5. I'm sorry, not by 5, by 3. Could be divided by 3. The 3 goes away, you're left with x. Negative 9 divided by 3 is negative 3. And 15 divided by 3 is 5. So this will be our interval. Okay. Alright. So now what we're going to do is we're going to graph the interval. So give me a second here. Alright, so we're going to start at negative 3, negative 1, 1, 3, and 5. So we're kind of skipping by 2's, so that way we can see the interval. We're starting at negative 3 with an empty circle, and going all the way to 5, where it's going to be a filled circle. So my interval here will start at negative 3 with a parenthesis, and we end at 5 with a bracket. We're going to talk about compound inequalities. Okay. Basically, compound inequalities is we'll have either an and statement or a or statement. So that's basically the definition of compound inequalities. Okay. So here's an example of an and statement. So basically, you're going to move the 7 to the other side. So this would be 2 plus 7. So it will be x less than 9. And then here will be 2x plus 1 less than 9. We're going to solve for x. So this would be 2x, 9 minus 1. So it would be 2x less than 8. We divide it by 2. X is less than 4. Alright, now remember, this is an and statement. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to graph both answers over here on the number line. So first, we're going to create label the number line, because I want to cover from 4 to 9. So let's see, if I put 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, it will not fit. So let's say I start with 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. That will work. 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. And then number 9 will be right in the middle, so you can just put number 9 there. And we're going to start at 4 with an empty circle. And we're going to go to the left. Okay? And then for the x less than 9, we're going to start at 9 with an empty circle again. And we're going to go to the left as well. Now, to do our solution, you need to consider both graphs. You need to ask yourself, if I move my pencil from left to right, where am I touching both lines at the same time? So if I start moving my pencil from left to right, the first place I start touching both lines at the same time would be at the arrow, which means that would be part of my answer. And as I continue moving my pencil from left to right, I'm touching both lines, and the last place I touch both lines is at 4. So I'm going to make my line all the way to 4, and then this is an empty circle. Here there is a point 4, but because the end statement, it has to occur to both places, this would be an empty circle. Now had this been a filled circle, then you would have a point on 4 and a point on 4 over here, so that means that will be part of your answer. After point 4, I'm only touching one of the lines. So as I move forward to the right, I'm only touching one of the lines. And then after that, I'm not touching anything. So in this point, these are not part of the solution. To be part of the solution, they have to be touching both lines. So basically the solution is only this graph. And if I was going to write in interval notation, this then would be, you start at negative infinity, and you go all the way to 4, and it's going to be a parenthesis. And also, infinity starts with a parenthesis. Okay? Alright, let's do letter B now. Alright, letter B. Same thing, I'm going to do the divided by 2. So this would be x greater or equal to 0. So that's one of my answers. And the other one is going to be 4x. I'm going to move the 1 to the other side, so it would be negative 9 plus 1. So this would be 4x less or equal to negative 8 divided by 4. X less or equal to negative 2. With that, we're going to graph our lines. So let's say we start at negative 1, 0, 1. Oops, we have to go all the way to negative 2. So, sorry here. So it would be, say, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1. So for this one, we're going to start at 0. And we're going to go to infinity. And on this one, we're going to start at negative 2. Whoops. Negative 2. And we're going to go to negative infinity. Now, when I consider both, remember, to be part of the solution, it has to be touching both lines at the same time. As I move from left to right, I'm only touching one line. Only touching one line. So, that means there's no place where I touch both lines at the same time. So, in other words, my answer is nothing. So, basically, the symbol that you write is nothing. Or no solution. Okay? This would be the symbol for no solution here. Alright? Alright, let's go on to the next one. We've seen these problems before, and this problem is also considered an end statement because the final answer is an interval. So let's revisit this problem. This problem basically, you're going to move the 4. So it would be 2 minus 4 greater or equal to negative x less than 7 minus 4. Now, is the x alone? The answer is no, because there's a negative in front of the x. So that means we need to divide by negative 1. But before we do that, let's go ahead and combine these. So this would be negative 2, negative x, this would be a 3. So now we're going to divide by all three sides by negative 1. So this would be x less or equal, whoops, if we divide by negative number, we need to flip all the signs. So this would be -3, and this would be +2. So this will be our answer here. Now, one thing is, we usually like to have the bigger number on the right versus being on the left. So what we can do to do that, to fix this, is to flip everybody. So basically, I'm going to move this guy over here and move this guy over here, and the 2 goes there, and the -3 goes there. That way I have the smallest number on the left and the biggest number on the right. That will make it easier to make my graph. Okay, so basically we'll start at say we start at -4, -2, 0, 2, and 4. At 2, I'm going to make a solid point, and at -3, which is right here, we'll make a empty circle. So when I do my interval notation, this would be parentheses, -3, and comma 2, bracket. Alright, so basically here what we're going to do is, we don't like the fraction, so what we can do is multiply each one by 3, because by multiplying by 3 I'm going to get rid of that fraction that is over there. So 3 times -1 is -3. 3 times 2 is 6, divided by 3 is 2x. 3 times 5 is 15, and 3 times 2 is 6. Now we're going to solve for x just like before. I'm going to move the 15 to both sides, so this would be -3 minus 15, and this would be 2x and 6 minus 15. So on this side I'm going to get -18, and on the other side I'm going to get -9. Now basically I'm going to divide both sides by 2. So that means the 2 goes away, and I'm left with -9, and here I'm left with -4.5. So that would be my interval. So let's go ahead and plot this on the number line. So this will start out with -10, -8, -6, -4, -2. Alright, so we want 9, so it would be -9 over here. And 4.5, this would be 5, this would be 4.5. So it would be right here. It would be an empty circle. So that means my interval will start at a bracket, -9, and it will end at -4 with a parenthesis. Alright, let's continue on to the next problem. Okay, the next problem is an OR statement. Okay, so let's see how we do. We do it the same way for at the beginning. We're going to solve for x. So let's go ahead and do that. So this would be 5x less than 5. I'm going to divide both sides by 5. X must be less than 1. Okay, then this would be x greater or equal to 5 minus 1. X is greater or equal to 4. Now remember, this is an OR statement. Still, it's pretty much the same. We're going to make the graph. So we're going to go from 1 to 4. So start with 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're going to do 1 going to the right, to the left, and then 4 with a fill circle going to the right. Now, because it's an OR statement is a little bit different than the AND statement. If you remember, AND statement, you must touch the pencil at both lines to be part of the solution. The OR statement, on the other hand, you only have to be touching one of the lines to be part of the answer. So as I move my pencil from left to right, what's the first place I touch at least one of the lines? Well, would be at negative infinity. And I will be touching the line all the way up to a 1, and then I'm going to have a break of touching the line. So I don't have no solution. And then over here, I start touching the line again. So I start having a solution again. And I continue having solution to infinity. So basically, my answer is going to be these two lines. So how do I write that in interval notation? Well, basically, I start at 0. I start at negative infinity. And I stop at 1. And then you're going to put this symbol that means OR. And you're going to start at 4 with a bracket. And you're going to go to positive infinity on the other end. So that will be your answer. Alright, let's go now to the last problem. So again, another OR statement. So this would be negative 2x less than negative 3 plus 5. So it would be negative 2x less than 1. Divide both sides by negative 2. X, flip the sign, negative 0.5. I'm sorry, negative 5 plus 5 is 2. So let me fix that. 2 divided by negative 2 is negative 1. Alright. And then this would be 6x less than 0. Divide both sides by 6. X must be less than 0. So those are my two statements. So let's make a graph of them. We'll start at negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. I'm going to make this graph here, which starts at negative 1 and goes to infinity to the right. And we'll start at 0 and goes to infinity on the negative side. Now with the pencil, I'm going to move from left to right. And where's the first place I touch at least one of the lines? Well, it would be at negative infinity. And I continue being able to touch a line as I go from left to right. Here I am touching one of the lines. Here I am also touching one of the lines, So in other words, I'm going to be touching the line wherever I go. Okay? So that means my answer is all these numbers. So how do I represent that? Well, this would be negative infinity all the way to infinity. And you always close with a parenthesis. Alright, very well. So that concludes lesson B6. And at the end of the paper here, you'll see the assignment for assignment B6. So thank you very much for your time and have a great day.